and that's why I prefer tap over jazz. The end. Hey everyone, it's Freddie. I just kind of got back from pretty much like a month-long tour in Europe. I just quickly want to thank all the people that came out to all the shows, as well as all my hosts and all the DJs and producers that I met on the way, promoters, everybody pretty much. This time around, I basically took trains everywhere, where Cologne was kind of like my home base, and then I would just kind of go back and forth from Cologne to all the other cities. But for this tour, I did mainly Germany, and then I also did Belgium for the first time. I also did Paris again, and then I did Switzerland, Zurich for the first time, and I did Linz, Austria for the first time. And then, like I said, most of the shows were surrounding Germany, so Cologne, Leipzig, Munich. I did Munich for the first time, Leipzig for the first time. I went to Berlin again, and I did Hamburg for the first time. So big thanks to, like I said, big thanks to everybody who came out to all the shows and all the support that I got from pretty much everybody coming out. But for this video, I wanted to talk about a few things, regarding like touring and artists and everything, but I also wanted to, people tune into this YouTube channel and, myself and my Instagram and all this stuff to check out my beats, like I might as well post me in the studio, like, and show you guys kind of how I constructed a few things. So this first beat, I actually started in a flat in Europe, and then I finished it on the train, just on my laptop, and then I played it the same night when I arrived back in Cologne. So this was made in like a collection of like a day. But quickly, I just want to talk about like touring and stuff like that, and the importance of it, pretty much for like independent artists. I think I definitely am lucky enough to be in a situation where I'm able to tour and do shows overseas. Like it's like a crazy kind of thing. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that, or like have music take me to certain places. But I'm super grateful for that. I know there's a lot, I'm a producer. Let me just make that clear. Like I'm a producer, I'm a DJ and a producer. I'm not like a musician, and I think I'm far from like being a performer. But with, I guess, the popularity that producers have had in the past, like maybe 5 to 10 years, being kind of at the forefront of, these performances. It's like a new thing, and it's a crazy thing. So, when I do my shows, firstly, I know like some people had some questions like what I use for like my live shows, and I mainly use my laptop running Ableton basically, and I use this Machine Micro MK2 for just like, I use it as a controller for Ableton. So it's running the Ableton script, where I can control Ableton just from the machine. And then I use the micro to basically trigger clips, as well as to do like finger drumming, and to a little bit of triggering effects and stuff like that. But it's mainly to like trigger clips, and then like kind of just do drumming pretty much, or like trigger samples and stuff like that. I also use this, which is the DJ Tech Tools MIDI Fighter Twister, and it's a MIDI mappable and programmable controller basically, and you have these like these 16 rotary encoders. They turn, and colors light up and everything, but they're also pushable. They're like pushable encoders, so you can use it to trigger stuff. It's basically just a controller, and then you just map whatever you need to map to it, and it has a few banks, so I think it has like maybe 3 banks, so like 16 on each bank, so you can map a bunch of shit on here. And with the DJ Tech Tools MIDI Fighter software, you can adjust like how these encoders kind of are sensitive and stuff like that. So the software is pretty cool. You can customize like the colors as well as pretty much like the buttons itself and everything pretty much. So I use that and my laptop pretty much just for live shows. I'm gonna incorporate the SP more into my live shows, but then I actually don't. I only use the push when I have to do shows like locally, like San Diego, Los Angeles, maybe San Francisco. I actually don't want to travel with my push because I don't want it to get fucked up. I kind of want it to stay here and just kind of be like a studio piece of gear. But yeah, usually when I do like kind of like local shows or domestic in the U.S. shows, I'll just use this, and maybe the MIDI fighter twister and just leave the machine. But for travel's sake, this is what I use pretty much. It's a lot lighter. It's easier to travel with. The push is like so hard to travel with. It's not incredibly hard, but it's like if I'm only going to be using it like half the time, I want it to stay here. Anyway, also, I know there's like, just talking with a few of my hosts and promoters and, other DJs and producers as well. And, looking at myself as a producer, not really as a performer. Like I create most of my music in my studio. So to play out this my music that I've created in the studio out in a live kind of scenario, it's a little different. And for me, it's a little difficult because I'm not a musician. Like most of this stuff is like pretty much edited on my computer. So to play everything out in a kind of a live beat set kind of scenario, it's difficult. That's why I'm still kind of working out the kinks and how I can go about like presenting all this stuff, all my production in beat sets, so it's just not so like boring in a way. And I'm doing more drumming, I'm doing more like finger kind of triggering, but like I said, it's like a new territory for me. I can go out and DJ like any kind of show. I can go and DJ. It's like second nature to me. I can get in the groove, I can get in the pocket, I can, if I need a party rock, I can party rock. If I want to do like just beat DJing, I can do it. It's like, I've been DJing for so long that I'm so comfortable doing it. Just more of an interactive kind of performance thing going, so it looks cool. It looks cooler. Yeah, but like with the beat set stuff, it's like a new thing to me. Even though I've been doing it for like a few years, I'm still kind of like working out the kinks and stuff like that. And I do want to make it so like I'm kind of performing this stuff rather than just kind of pushing buttons and triggering effects. But yeah, like I said, I'm still working out the kinks. And I know that other producers maybe feel the same way when they're going out and doing shows as well. And I know a lot of producers that don't want to do shows because, like they just don't want to do them. And, I'm in the same boat. Like, I feel like sometimes I just do not want to do shows where I'm just presenting my beats. It's for me, like as the artist, I think it's a little awkward. I mean, maybe it's just me personally, but I think it's just a little bit awkward to play my beats. Like, it's stuff that I've worked on for like maybe days in the studio. So to go and, play it out, and then people are just standing around listening to your own music. It's just like it's awkward feeling for me. I don't know. Like, it's nothing bad. I'm not talking anything bad about it or anything like that. It's just like, it's like a weird feeling. And I would rather play other people's music. Like when I DJ, I like playing other people's music because I'm such a fan of other people's music. And I'm not such a huge fan of my own music, where when I go out and play like an hour beat set of just my beats, it's like this weird kind of like, okay, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just weird. But yeah, like but there still is like kind of like an importance to like going out and presenting your music to people that have been following your music for so long. I think, like, especially when you're not from that area, like touring Europe, like I'm not from Europe. So I only go there like maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years. So like when people do come out, this is like the only time they get to see me. So I have to go out and like just like play my stuff because fans and listeners, they come out for you, like so like it's important to kind of do shows and kind of, I'm not saying like you have to be like super like you have to rock that shit or anything like that. It's just, like most of the people, they come out because they're just fans of your music or fans of whatever. So if you are kind of like a producer that kind of prevents themselves from doing live shows, I think you should get over it. Like I have to get over it too. And just do the live shows because people want to see you. Like it's really important that people see you like in person and they get to meet you and like shake your hand and stuff like that. And like I have to kind of think about like how I was when I go out and like meet like some of like my favorite producers and like just artists in generals, and how I used to get like really like nervous and like not like starstruck, but like like, oh wow, like I've been listening to you for like so many years, and meeting you in person is just like crazy. It's like a crazy feeling. I understand that, so I think that's important that I go out and do shows. Anyway, let's get into the fucking beats. What am I talking about for so damn long? Anyway, it was just like something on my mind, like just talking about like with other people and stuff like that. Okay, so like I said, this first beat doesn't contain any samples. I made it in a flat in, I think, Austria. I started it there, and then the train back from Austria back to Germany to Cologne. I basically just finished it on the train on my laptop with no MIDI controllers or anything like that. I just basically used the keyboard on my actual laptop to trigger like samples and effects and play out like bass lines and certain melodies on here. So it initially started with the guitar. It's like a bunch of guitar chords basically that I imported into one track, a bunch of separate guitar chords, and I imported it into live. Excuse me. And then what I did with all those separated waves or like audio stems is I consolidated it into one single track, and then I created warp markers on each of those guitar chord like transients basically, and then I converted that audio track into a MIDI track, which is a sampler, and then that's how I'm able to play it out on the pads. So all of those like separate all of those guitar chords, those sounds were all separated before, and then I basically converted it into a new MIDI track so I can play them out on the pads. So basically, I just came up with this chop or this loop. And so on and so forth. And it just basically loops. And then with some effects processing, I basically, this is how it sounds. So most of the effects on here on that guitar chop basically are all like native Ableton effects. So as you can see down here, I have an EQ, 8-band EQ or 4-band EQ. Then over here, I have this Redux plugin. It's basically just kind of like a bit reducer, so it makes the audio sound kind of like a reduce kind of bit reduction, like 8-bit or 12-bit. So you kind of get that crunchy kind of weird sound. And then just like a simple delay and reverb. And these are all like native Ableton plugins. This one non-Ableton plugin is this plugin by Isotope, and it's called Isotope Vinyl. If you guys are familiar with Isotope like plugins, they're pretty well known for their Ozone plugin, which is kind of like a mixing and mastering kind of suite plugin. I really like using the imager on there on that Ozone plugin. I think I'm using Ozone 6 now, and the imaging whatever plugin, and I think sometimes I use their maximizer. They have some other ones on there too. But anyway, this is actually a free plugin by Isotope. You can go on to the Isotope website and download this plugin for free. And it's basically, it emulates how like a old record would sound pretty much. So it has like kind of like this warp feature. So like if the record is spinning and it's like a warped record, it emulates that effect. And there's a few other things on here that I use. I use this plugin pretty sparingly. Like I don't use it really drastically or anything like that. But like especially with a lot of like European producers or like people who produce from like the SP over here, even the SP has like kind of that same kind of feature or effect where it has like a vinyl kind of effect. And this pretty much kind of does the same thing. But yeah, like I said, I use it pretty sparingly. I know a lot of like European producers and a lot of like lo-fi beat producers use this same kind of effect, but they use it it's pretty noticeable in their production. But I don't use it as crazy as them. So yeah, like if you look at the actual plugin, it has a few features. It has like this mechanical noise feature. See if you put it up. I don't use that stuff, or the wear. I guess you can. Then it has like this electrical noise, kind of like feedback. I don't use that. And it has like some dust features and scratch features, which I don't use at all. I don't use that stuff at all because I think it sounds too cheesy or not great at all. But I do use this warp depth feature, and like I said, I use it pretty sparingly. Here's what it would sound like if you're using it like at 100%. But yeah, and then it has a few other like features on here. Like down here, it has like if you want to emulate like a 33 1/3 or 45 or a 78 RPM kind of record. And then it has this like year dial. I have it set to 1970, but you can have it set to all these other ones. I guess it's supposed to emulate the record from, like if you're getting a record player from that particular era or year. And it's basically just kind of EQs it. And then you have like these warp models too, so you can kind of get the waveform how you want it to, or how it warps. But yeah, I use it very like subtly, so you can only really tell if you listen to it super closely. And I know a lot of other producers, they use that particular effect pretty like drastically, so you can tell. But let's get into the rest of the beat. I'm just gonna go ahead and play pretty much from this chorus area or this bridge. Okay, so there's a few things going on there. Other than the guitar, which you just heard, we also have the bass here. Here's what the bass sounds like without any of the processing. It sounds pretty cheesy, but if you EQ it with this like really simple 3-band EQ, and I use that Redux plugin again, like the bit reducer, just to give it a little bit of character, kind of like a buzzing kind of bass. And then what else do I have here? I have this simple piano, and it's just kind of panning back and forth, like this pan feature with some reverb. It's a really simple piano. I'm just basically just hitting it with my finger, like each note. And then I have some strings in here. So I have a high string and a low string. And what I did for these is I played it on like the octave higher first, recorded it the octave higher, and then I basically duplicated the track and then I pitched it down a full octave. I don't usually do that. It's basically a duplicated track. But I feel with this one, it kind of gave it like this weird kind of sound rather than just playing it, recording a brand new track just an octave lower and playing it. It sounded like kind of too stiff. So I kind of just duplicated the track and then just pitched it down so it kind of sounded like a little bit different. But usually when I have to play the same melody, just like with different octaves, sometimes I'll just record a brand new track with like a different octave. And I think it like, I don't know how to explain it, but like I feel like sometimes when you duplicate a track and just like pitch it down, like the waveforms kind of like they phase out a little bit. I don't know how to explain it really, but it doesn't sound great. So it's just easier to like just re-record a brand new track and just play it at a lower or higher octave than you originally played and let those two tracks kind of just stack on top of each other. So those are just like two different ways that you can kind of do that. Then I have some horns. And then I have some flute here. So I actually have two flutes here. I'll play them together. Let me put this in here actually. So I have this kind of lead flute playing, kind of like stabs, like flute stabs. And then I have this secondary flute under that. It's kind of like this swell kind of flute. So when you stack them together, okay. And then lastly, it's just the drums, which are these. We'll just solo it. We'll play it from here, I guess. So the drums, if you can see like all the MIDI information here. So a few things going on. Oops, let's do this. So those are all like the drums. And then What I do when I usually when I record drums is I'll just play them out live, like on the pads. I'll just play like a 4 to 8 bar loop, just kind of loosely on the pads, and then not really quantize anything. I'll just play it like live or on the pads until I get a 4 to 8 bar loop that I actually like, that loops fairly decently, and then any kind of fine adjustments that I need to make within like the MIDI notes here, like this area, I'll just kind of shift things over, or like maybe just quantize the snare. Like I might just do stuff like that. But everything else just kind of just gets played out, and then usually I'll like record it once. Or I'm sorry, I'll just record it until I get it right. Like if I mess up, then I'll re-record it and I'll just play it out again. Okay, that sounds all right, but not as close as I want it. And then I'll just delete that and just re-record it until I just get it right. Where I'm like, okay, that loop that I just played sounds decent. Let me just kind of like shift a few things over here and there, just so it kind of lines up and it loops somewhat properly. And that's what I did with this one. Because if you can kind of see here, like within the MIDI notes itself, if you can kind of come in close here, like the snares are pretty much quantized, but then everything else is like not on the grid. If you can kind of see that, like this kick is not really like lined up with certain points on the grid. And then like the hi-hats and the snares, and I mean the hi-hats and like a few of the shakers, they're not like completely lined up. So everything's kind of loose, except for maybe the snare. But then if you stack stuff on top of the snare right here, that are not aligned to the grid, it kind of still gives a loose kind of feel. But anyway, there's some tambourine here as well. Yeah, this is a tambourine. I think I got a lot of these sounds, these other miscellaneous sounds, through Reason, so I'll rewire Reason to Ableton. And then a triangle. And I think I basically just played the triangle on Reason as well. It had three notes of different sounds of a triangle, and then you kind of play it so it sounds like a real triangle. But yeah, that's the drums. So with everything together, it sounds like this. Yeah, pretty much. And then just as an added effect, I have this like vinyl record effect. I don't know if you can hear that, but it sounds like static on a record. And that's just to kind of like put in the background, just so it kind of gives it a little bit of character without actually coming from a record. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I started this beat in one of my apartments that I stayed at, and then I finished it on the train. Did everything on the laptop, where I just used the keyboard on the laptop to trigger stuff, and then did all my mixing on on my headphones, and then I played it out that same night. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the next beat, which I believe is this one. which is not this one. I think it's this one. Okay. This second beat. This second beat is pretty simple for the most part, but a lot of the effects processing is done with the SP. So what I did was I pretty much created the loop or the base of this whole like beat within session mode in live. So as you can see, there's a bunch of like different like clips here in live where I came up with the idea of the beat. And then what I did was I mapped everything out in arrangement mode. And then what I did was I took certain stems of this song and I did all the effects processing, most of the effects processing through the SP. So I had an output from my audio interface that goes directly into the SP. Then it gets routed back into my audio interface, and then I re-recorded the track using the effects on here. So we'll listen to the beat first, and this is actually on my SoundCloud. If you guys want to check it out. But yeah, we'll get into the rest of it in a little bit. But as you can kind of see, it sounds like that kind of gritty, lo-fi 8-bit kind of sound overall. That's because I did mostly, like I said, the effects processing through the SP. So it all started with this. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I believe it is this track. Nope. Nope. No. Nope. Where is the... Let's solo this real quick. So this is the original chops, pretty much. Let me see if I can just make it louder so you can hear it. So these are the original chops. So because it was in stereo, I put it into like a mono track or a mono effect and then just put an EQ on it. Oh, it sounds terrible, sorry. But this is it, what it sounds like in stereo. And then if you convert it to mono, it sounds like this. So I took this, basically, these chops, and then I did the effects processing through the SP using this isolator effect. So it'll sound like that, even though hey, we're on old-timey radio. So it comes out like this, basically. And again, I'm using this isotope vinyl, like warping thing, very subtly. And later on in the song, I have this auto filter kind of come on. So yeah, that's basically the the base of the song. So I did these chops and I created like everything around this. Usually, I don't really start with drums. It's just easier for me to start with the sample and then build everything around the sample. I mean, that's just how I have always been doing it. And then I did the drums as well. So here's the drums, like in their dry form. Oops, this one. So yeah, that's the drums in their dry form. And then it gets processed a couple times. So it gets processed once through the SP using that isolator effect. So it sounds like this. Then it gets processed again as a separate track. Using the lo-fi button on the SP. So when you stack them together, they sound like this. And as you can kind of hear, it doesn't line up properly like in the beginning of that loop. And then in the second part, it lines up. So it's a little bit sloppy in the first part of that drum, and then it's a lot tighter on the second half of that drum. And that's cool to kind of do like sometimes. Sometimes you make like these like small mistakes that you just keep just to add a little bit more character. So, and then this is basically the bass line, and I did the bass line through, I think, my keyboard. I just found kind of like a low kind of sounding bass. And then these are basically just like vocal samples. And then later on in the song is this piano that I basically just played on my keyboard, and I had to go through the SP just for that lo-fi effect. And then basically this is what it sounds like without being processed for the final time. This is like the dry form of it. So it sounds decent, but what I did was this final kind of like mix, I processed all the tracks all together as one through the SP once again, and then back into my audio interface just to re-record it. And I used the I used the compressor on the SP as well as the lo-fi button again. So a few of these like tracks, they get processed through the SP like 2 or 3 times, and then one final time through the master bus. So this is what it sounds like after being processed for the final time, like the whole track. So it goes from this to this. But yeah, I mean, the change, I mean, you can definitely hear the change. I liked it more with that lo-fi kind of effect, rather than it just being dry how it is right here. I mean, this sounds decent, but just to kind of give it a little bit more character, I just process it through again. And what's cool about the compressor on the SP is you can kind of get this really weird kind of punchy effect. Here, I'll just play it out with the effect real quick. Let me see if I can do this. I'll just play it real quick. But yeah, when it gets processed through the SP, like especially with that compressor effect, it's like really like crazy. But yeah, you know, that's just the beat. It's like I said, it's a really simple beat for the most part. But just getting processed through the SP like multiple times, it gives it like this weird kind of like sound. But yeah, you can check this out on my SoundCloud. It's on there. Yeah. Do we have time for one more? We'll do one more kind of quick one. It's not really mapped out completely, but I can kind of show you the base of it. And for this particular one, I presented it on my Instagram, I think. It just like me playing around with it. And then I take advantage of the SP again for this. I'll just play everything out so you can hear it. So this is it dry, basically. But then I use the compressor. I use the compressor on the SP to kind of give it a little more oomph. So that's it dry. That's with the compressor. But yeah, I'll just quickly go over the chops on this. So basically, the chops are this pad, I think. Okay, what's happening to my screen right now? What does that mean? On the screen. Okay. So, let's go down one. I don't know why my screen is flashing right now. I'm sorry. That's basically how I chopped it. If I can give some tips on like chopping, I guess. I know a lot of people they chop the like a 4 to 8 bar loop and then they just play it out like in a row. And that's their chop. Or they'll just play like a small, very small section of that chop. So they'll just do. and then they'll just let that loop, which is fine. Sometimes it works, but then if I can give some tips, it's like you don't have to. You can play your chops any way you want. You can. If there's one thing I learned from like listening to like Kev Brown chop samples and play them out, is he kind of plays, especially with pianos and like guitars, he plays kind of like this staggered kind of like pattern when he plays like his chops. This is like listening to like stuff from like 2003, or I mean like 2000 and like maybe 5 or 6. When I was listening to Kev Brown, like I would listen to how he would play out his samples on the pads on his MPC, and be like, wow, he's like kind of playing them like this kind of like weird staggered like pattern. And that's how I kind of got into that, like around that time, like 2006. So you can kind of play like a weird kind of staggered thing kind of pattern. But yeah, so basically I played out the chops the way I wanted it to, and then it goes through the SP with the isolator effect and back in again. So here is the initial chops. And then I add small little other chops just stacked on top of that. So it comes out like this. Yeah, I mean, you can't really hear it, but that also gets processed through the SP again. And then that's kind of like the bridge or the chorus area. And then this is kind of like the verse area, I guess. Yeah. And then there's a bass line, which is this. Pretty simple bass line. And then the drums are super simple. Drums are super simple. And then for the chorus or bass or bridge area, there's just strings. Like tremolo kind of strings. But then what's cool, so this is it dry basically. But if you plug it through the SP, like everything, the master bus through the SP, once more with the compressor effect, you get this. So this is with the compressor. This is without the compressor. I mean, of course it's going to be louder, but it also like slams the drums enough where it gives it a little bit of character. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm still mapping everything out, and I'll put it up soon. I don't even know what I'm going to do with this. But yeah, those are kind of like 3 beats that I just wanted to present. The first one didn't really have any samples. And then the last two did have kind of like samples or, sample chops anyway. Like I said, big thanks to everybody who's kind of tuned into this whole YouTube thing that I've started for the new year. I know I've said I've been kind of was going to be consistent about it, but like work and you know other things, they just kind of take precedence, and I'll try to upload as much as I can when I can. Um, I was thinking for the next one, I know a lot of people have been asking how I program my drums, and I can kind of quickly go over that in a separate video. Um, there's a few different ways that I program drums. Sometimes I'll just make a drum kit from scratch, and then sometimes I'll just chop up like drum breaks and just play that out and just kind of layer stuff. It's all about layering. And then sometimes I'll just use loops and just kind of edit loops in a sense, and then just stack loops. So there's no like incorrect way to do any of this stuff. So um, yeah, I'll just kind of quickly go over kind of drum programming in the next one. But yeah, big thanks again to everybody who's kind of tuned in, like I said, and I'll post more stuff in a little bit. Also, big thanks to everybody in Europe. Big shouts to like Flo Fills. We linked up and worked on like maybe 2 or 3 beats. And Kaderbai out of Zurich. You can check out his studio in one of my previous Europe posts on YouTube. He's mainly like he produces everything off machines like MPCs, but he has a cool studio. And then when he plays out live, he plays using 2 MPC 1000s. But yeah, yeah, big shouts to like Beat Pete, my man Beat Pete out of Berlin, and Marion Tone out of Berlin, and all the other DJs and promoters. Big shouts to like Stefan in Munich and the Boom Clack like group, and who else, and everybody else in Europe for like holding it down. Big shouts to Yasha and Dub Lab and Groove Attack Records for having us play, and my man Guido in Cologne. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, and I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. I don't know. Maybe I'll just post it in the next video. And I don't know why my screen is doing that. Let's get it done.